All right, we start with the breaking news story this hour. President Cyril Ramaphosa has finally accepted Deputy President David Mabuza's resignation as Deputy President of the ANC. Mabuza has also resigned as a member of Parliament, or rather Deputy President of the country, that is. This follows his request to Ramaphosa to step down from his position. Ramaphosa lauded Mabuza for his exceptional service to the country over the last 5 years. Now, senior reporter Aviwe Mtila is out and about just checking with South Africans. Aviwe, I understand you out and about checking with South Africans. First of all, how they feel about, the last few weeks. We've been hearing of an imminent cabinet reshuffle, changes to people, whether they're MPs or sworn in, etc., but still no cabinet reshuffle. So how are people feeling on the ground?
Anytime is tea time, Maseko, some of the sentiments that I heard from one ANC member a bit earlier on, but it's mixed reactions on the ground. And Sandton, Africa's Golden Square Mile now, where a lot of people have voiced the issues around nothing much changing in terms of their livelihoods, Maseko. Of course, they did mention the issue of the cabinet reshuffle, some voicing out their preferences, but the majority of those who've spoken of the economic situation and the youth, especially, that don't have jobs. But of course, we heard that resignation of David Mabuza in Parliament. It was received by the ANC Chief Whip yesterday, in fact, Pemi Machodina, as well as the Speaker of Parliament, Aviwe Mtila, yesterday. That means, of course, that the country as it stands doesn't have a Deputy President, I beg your pardon. This was, of course, said before, that David Mabuza had resigned earlier on in the year. The President himself mentioning it on the 16th of February when he was replying to the State of the Nation address, that debate that happened in Cape Town in Parliament, thanking David Mabuza for his ongoing service for the last 5 years as Deputy President, but going on to say that it's something that he's considering. Now it is finalized. There is, in fact, a press statement that has come out from the presidency confirming that David Mabuza has now officially resigned as a Deputy President. That, of course, concludes and officially officiates that vacancy of Deputy President. It talks off to a number of vacancies that are already there. We know there is that much talk about Minister of Electricity in the presidency that still needs to be filled. That announcement happening on the 9th of February. Also, of course, we know Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula also has to be permanent in the African National Congress as the Secretary General, a position that needs him to be hands-on. So he is also going to be one of those that move from as being a Member of Parliament and Minister. A lot of developments happening around this. Some of those conversations that I've had, even with political analyst Kamtang Namalinga, on what he thinks is to happen and who is to fill up some of these vacancies. Let's take a listen to that.
Well, to tell the truth, I'm not interested. Who goes in, who goes out, for me doesn't make a difference. And I think it's what most of us South Africans are feeling at the moment, unfortunately.
Just want to have somebody that's reliable there. So I don't have a name for you, but South Africa needs somebody reliable.
We are rather concerned about the reshuffle because we don't know what's going to happen to small business. We are hoping that the reshuffle is going to deal with removing those redundant ministers who have done nothing. For SOE, for start, Pravin Gordhan must go. If he brings him back in again, that means he wants the same. Is that thing of doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result? Okay, Pravin Gordhan must go.
With the reshuffle, we know that Fikile Mbalula has to be full-time at Luthuli House. So with Fikile, that transport ministry has to be filled full-time. I'd expect someone like Zigalala probably would come in there. We know that the position of public service and administration has been vacant ever since Ayanda Dlodlo moved to the World Bank and Minister Nglesi has been acting. That position needs to be filled full-time now. So that one is quite dicey now, and especially with the public sector strike coming up. So I wouldn't want to bet now as to who would want to come into that space, especially with these strikes looming. I don't want to now come on and say this is the right person. It's quite dicey at the moment. There's also the position of electricity, the one that's been introduced by the president. I would love for that one to see someone who's coming in from the public sector, so that we do not have a political role player in there, and that position to be straddling between politics and all of that. But it seems as if now there's a huge campaign that's going on for Dr. Khosi Ramokopa to fill in that position, and in all likelihood he's one of the top candidates, and I would say I would back him up as well for that position as well. He's one of the most strategic guys that you can find within the ANC.
And Aviwe, looking at the fact that the finance minister was sworn in as a member of parliament just a few weeks ago, we saw Paul Mashatile, the president of the ANC, being sworn in as well as a member of parliament. So, you know, the word imminent we've been using for the last couple of weeks as media, and this afternoon, Makwenya also to hold a media briefing. So this imminent word is really coming true?
Really coming through. In fact, any moment from now, it will be very sooner than expected now. Of course, David Mabuza, the latest resignations from the Member of Parliament. A lot of developments happening. You mentioned that press briefing that's happening at the President's, at the Union buildings at 1:30 to 2 o'clock. Also, we've seen a lot of movement in the last couple of days. SACP leaders as well as the COSATU leaders meeting with President around that cabinet reshuffle just on Friday. In fact, I was on a phone call with COSATU leaders a bit earlier on in the morning, who say that they don't want to divulge the exact contents of the meeting that was held on Friday, but they do suggest that what kind of leader they want. For example, they say that they don't want the recycling of ministers, so they want young, fresh, energetic ministers. One of those stipulations there. Also, ministers that aren't corruption tainted. You just have to look at the Zondo Commission inquiry report, for example, where you know that there are a number of ministers and deputy ministers that already have been fingered there for further investigations, those recommendations coming in. So they say that they want clean ministers that will be appointed in this cabinet reshuffle. Also, another one is that they want disciplined ministers, suggesting that they don't want ministers that will go out and speak out against the president publicly. Not that they're not allowed to voice their concerns or issues around the president, but they're saying that that must be done within the confines of cabinet. So it speaks out to what we've even seen in recent times. Some ministers actually going out to speak out there. You heard even Thamsanqa Malinga, the political analyst that we just played you a bit earlier on, fingering the tourism minister, Lindiwe Sisulu, who's been vocal time and again on just not seeing eye to eye with some of what government, more pointedly the president, has been doing in leadership. So we can expect some of those changes any time. In fact, one of those ANC members that I spoke to saying any time is tea time. They were expecting this reshuffle on a Sunday already, but of course it didn't materialize. But now, given that we don't have a deputy president, with that resignation of David Mabuza as the member of parliament just yesterday, it means that we're much sooner to a cabinet reshuffle than we've ever been now.
All right, Aviwe, just very quickly, the people you've spoken to, have they said anything about who they think should take this electricity minister position?
Well, they've shared that very same sentiment that you heard from Thamsanqa Malinga, Dr. Ramokopa, there, the man that's been touted, you know, a credible leader that is expected to turn things around with the Minister of Electricity. Of course, a lot of disappointment to the ministers already around there. You heard those grievances on the ground. One of the people that I spoke to a bit earlier on pointing fingers towards the Public Enterprises Minister, Pravin Gordhan, saying that he's one of those that should go. A lot of voices on the ground, also disgruntled Maseko on the governance itself, lack of services that they're receiving, the ongoing load shedding that is crippling the economy essentially, and it's making it difficult for any prospects of employment to grow. So they're saying that whatever happens with the cabinet, it must be people that will turn our economic woes around, and in fact just be credible leaders that will do the right thing as cabinet ministers.
All right. In fact, Aviwe, let's bring in our colleague Siphamandla Goke, who is in fact live for us at the Union buildings on this particular story as well. But Aviwe, thank you very much for your time.